Okay, this right here is an old sanding disc, and it serves a really nice purpose. This one here is pretty well beat up. Let me get a better one. This here is a better one. It hasn't been used nearly as much. So all I'm going to do now, I always do it. There's no need to do it, but I do it anyway because that's how I kind of go. I check for any kind of fuzzies on here. Usually there aren't any. If there are, it's very few. And then I'm going to do a dry fit because I've never wasted. Look, this isn't an advertisement for Pete. I never met the guy. But I'm very happy to share with you some of the successes that I've had. And a large part of it's due to that damn sled right there. So I just wrap a rubber band around there like such and so. Get it to where it's out and everything around there is nice and even. Well, I'm not even gonna look. I'm gonna let you look. You don't get to see any daylight between these things here. It's not even any glue in there. I don't have to sand this edge here. There's no reason to have to sand that. That sled does that for you. A good sled and a damn good blade on a solid table, that's all you really need. Good imagination. Okay, so all I'm going to do is repeat this process with a piece of Purple Heart. So it's the same thing again. Checking for this Purple Heart, it's got a few more whiskers, I suppose you could call them. Just a dry fit to make sure that I didn't do anything goofy. There's always a chance of that happening. These rubber bands work pretty darn good. Slap it on there like such. I don't use them to glue up. You can, I've seen people do it, but I've got hose clamps that I like to use, and we're going to do that here in a little bit. Okay, again, this right here is as good as I can make them anyway. All right. So easy design change would be, you have two rings, now you can have two of them like this here. Or any other variation that you can come up with. Okay, here's a little design element that you might want to keep an eye on. You see that these two different pieces of wood, one is wider than the other. They're both the same thickness, but one's wider than the other. By having it offset like this, when I go to put this and align it, as you'll see the process that I use, it becomes very important that the cone that I push in here for my alignment tool is touching equally all the way around here. So if you're going to use two different pieces of wood, make sure that when you go to align it, you've already thought that process over. So this here is how it comes out, like this. Okay, look, this here is how I go about doing this glue up right here. I make sure I have all of the tools that I need. This right here for my radiator clamp, it's going to tighten it down for me. This here is an important piece that some folks don't use, probably a lot of folks don't use, but it's a press, and I'll show you how I use it. So I get the old rubber band back off of there, and I start my glue up process. Slap that baby on there, and I tighten it down just snug so that I can make sure that this clamp is pretty close to the center all the way around, giving kind of like equal pressure. Maybe that's a little too over the top, but like I said, this is how it works for me. I put this in the press, making sure to leave this screw handy, and I bring it down. I don't have to go down hard. I'm just making sure everything is nice and flat. I left this snug so that the pieces have a chance to move. Left it out here so I can now get after it, and now I can tighten it down. Okay, plenty tight enough. Bring it out of here, and just with your hands you can feel whether or not there's something that's too high somewhere. On this particular piece, I got lucky. I don't have to whack it with a hammer. I could whack it right there, but that gets cut off anyway, so it's not going to influence anything. So that there is going to be sitting there for a moment while I do up the next one. Now this has only been sitting over here for the length of time we've been doing this. This is no time elapsed crapola. But this is as long as that needs to be on there. Because not only is it going to be glued here, it's also going to be glued this way. So that's not going to go anywhere. In 5 minutes I can drop it, it won't break. But we got to do this one. Same damn thing again. Just bring this out, get it a little snug. Turn it over, see whether or not you have this here set up. Make sure that all of your pieces are all the way out. Obviously that's a critical step. Back into the press it goes. If there's excess glue, you would wipe it off. But I know how much to put on pretty much, so I try not to waste it. Go ahead. Okay, I just brought this out of the press, and I can feel that right in here there's a little bit of a ridge. I don't want that, because that means I'd have to sand it off. So before this glue sets up good, I'm going to give it a couple of whacks. And when I'm happy with it, I'll stop hitting it. But you can see right there, there's a little bit of a difference right there. We don't want that. Okay, that's all there is to this part of it right here.